So I have had the 2019 iPad 10.2 inch for a little over 2.5 weeks now. I have put it through its paces, gamed with it, note taken with it, all the regular things I would do with an iPad. And I think it's about damn time for my review. But before we continue with this, I'd really appreciate it if you'd leave a like on this video, comment if you have any questions, suggestions, or opinions, as the algorithm likes that and will help push my content to more people. So without wasting any more time, let me get into what you're getting for the money here, who this iPad is for, and just kind of go over the pros and cons of this device. Beginning with design, like I said in my initial impressions video, this is a Mod Podge of like 3 different generations of iPad. The iPad Air first generation launched in 2013. It has the same thickness, 7.5 millimeters thick to be exact. It also has the speakers from the iPad Air 2 here, and then it has the bezels sort of the iPad 10.5 inch and Touch ID first generation, I believe. So yeah, this is sort of a Frankenstein iPad, and I believe they just, made it the way it is to keep the costs down, to keep it affordable at its $329 starting price. After using it myself, I think it looks just fine. I mean, iPads from the past didn't look bad to begin with. The only gripe that I have is that this iPad is a little bit thick, especially when you're like gaming with it, when you're holding it. It kind of cuts into the side of your hand, and I do prefer the slimmer nature of the iPad Air 2 and the iPad Mini and the Air 3, but it's not that big of a deal. Go to the store, see it yourself, and especially if you're using a case, you're not going to really notice it. The speaker quality is okay, it's loud enough, it has enough clarity, it's nothing spectacular, but it does the job, and it does it well for like YouTube watching and music listening, and it's not any better than my iPad Air 2 was, and I never had a problem with its speakers. So is this the prettiest iPad? Obviously not. It's meant to keep the cost down. It has the oldest looking design, the thickest bezels, the thickest chassis at 7.5 millimeters thick, which isn't like insanely thick, but when you use, the other iPads, which have a 6-point-ish millimeter thickness, it's a big difference, I gotta say. But with that said, this is an Apple product and there is no plastic in sight, so this thing does not feel cheap in the slightest. You still get this chamfered Apple logo and the aluminum. It feels nice in the hand despite the fact that it is thicker and looks a little bit outdated. But I mean, for the people who want to buy this iPad, it's an entry-level, low tier. This is for kids. This is for people who are on a budget. You're going to have absolutely no problem with this device's design and, once again, speakers. It looks more than fine, especially for a little over $300. Moving on to display quality, this has a 10.2 inch display size, as we know, up from 9.7 inches from last year. Is it worth the size jump? I wouldn't say so, and I'm probably going to have a video comparing the last gen 2018 iPad to this iPad because they're so similar spec-wise. But in terms of the display quality, it's exactly the same. No True Tone. It's going to look a little bit bluer compared to your other Apple displays because this cannot adjust to the color temperature of the room. Not a big deal if you're not accustomed to that, but overall, the display quality is just fine. It has the same PPI as every other iPad. I believe it's at 264. It has decent colors. Once again, the size accommodates a nice size virtual keyboard and is good for taking notes with the Apple Pencil in an app like GoodNotes, for example, so I can go into my Philosophy 233 study guide. I was looking at this actually on this iPad the other night. And yeah, it's a nice size display for taking notes. We'll talk more about this in the performance aspect of this iPad. But yeah, the display size is definitely a plus. The 10.2 inch display does look bigger over the 9.7, but how much so is another question, once again, for another video. My only real gripe with this display is the air gap. I wish that they could have laminated it, but apparently that is kind of expensive. So you still get the air gap and you still get kind of like this echoey sort of like empty noise when you tap on the display versus when you tap on a laminated display, you don't get that. And also it just doesn't look as good as, once again, the thinner iPads. And if you are in this product's target demographic, you are going to enjoy this display. Once again, the PPI is no different. The colors are great. It just doesn't have some of the higher end features like True Tone and the lamination you get with the Air 3 and the iPad Pro. Moving on to battery life, I don't have exact numbers for you here. In fact, I don't have exact numbers for any of the devices that I use on a daily basis because every day is a little bit different. But what I can tell you is that this device will get you through a whole day, just like its predecessor did, the 9.7 inch iPad. And this iPad have the same battery size. Now, the display is a little bit bigger on here, which is going to draw a little bit more power. So I'm guessing that this device will get lesser battery life than the last gen, but probably not by much. And it's going to get you through a whole day anyway. And something that I have noticed that's really awesome about this device is the standby time. Since the battery is so big, you can use it in bouts, like throughout like a week. The battery on this thing just does not drain that fast when you're not using it. So if you're somebody who will use this periodically, it will definitely last you a couple days off a single charge. And once again, if you're somebody who uses this, for a significant amount of time throughout your day for music listening, YouTube watching, some gaming, web surfing, etc., it'll last you through the day, heavy tasks, maybe like most of the day, I would just plan to charge this, every night habitually just to keep it charged and, ready to go. But yeah, Apple is known for their awesome iPad battery life, and the iPad 10.2 really is no exception. To quickly go over camera, this is not one of this device's strong points here. It has an 8 megapixel rear camera and a 1.2 megapixel front camera. Don't expect to be taking any, pixel level images with this. It's good enough for FaceTime, good enough for taking pictures of mundane things. And now we're going to see, the 2019 or 2020 iPad Pro with a triple lens setup. That should be interesting. But with this device, once again, you're just going to want to keep it in the house if you're taking pictures of, documents and just mundane stuff. That's fine. This is what this device is for. Great for just work, school work, and once again, video chatting. But yeah, don't expect to take any high quality video or photos with this device. It's definitely not intended for that. And last but certainly not least, let's talk about the most important aspect of this device, software experience and performance. And as we know with iPadOS, the iPad form factor just got way more useful here. They're actually taking advantage of the display size and scaling things appropriately. And the iPad 10.2, like with battery life, is no exception. It's a very awesome experience, especially with the Apple Pencil, which makes for a really awesome, school-oriented experience, especially for note-taking and such with like an app like GoodNotes. You can definitely do that here, no problem. And the price of this device is awesome because it allows you to buy the Apple Pencil and the iPad for the same price as the Air 3, at least with the 32 gig model here. So you're not breaking the bank if you want the iPad Apple Pencil experience. 60 hertz on the display is totally fine for, writing stuff down. I have enjoyed my time writing on here. Once again, great for schoolwork, great for note-taking in class, out of class, You can also do homework assignments on your iPad. It's a very nice experience, drawing like diagrams and answering questions, being able to zoom in and out. Multitasking with this device is no problem either, and with iPadOS, it's been made even easier. You can have so many things open all at once here, so we can have, 3 instances of an app open here. And I can, like reposition and then hide apps. The animations throughout the OS are just fine. Even though the A10 is like 3 years old, it's not going to be as smooth as the iPad, Air 3, and especially not as smooth as the iPad Pro because this doesn't have the A12X and 120 hertz. But the iPhone 7 runs iOS 13 just fine. I actually have one on hand, and I'm going to be doing other videos on that, comparing it to the iPhone 11. But my point is that the A10, although it is older silicon, it does push the iPadOS experience quite nicely here. Apps open fairly quickly. Multitasking, once again, is no problem. If you want to do creative work with this device, however, I'm going to have to stop you because 32 gigabytes is not enough for, doing photo work, I would say, especially video work and maybe sketching too, because files will accumulate and the OS and other apps already take up space. So you're going to have 15 gigabytes to work with, and that just isn't enough. And you might be like, well, wait, Noah, there's a 128 gig version for $100 more. Why wouldn't I just buy that? At that point, I would say you're going to want to go with a better device, maybe an iPad mini with more storage, and it has a better processor in there. Or you might want to go with the Air 3, which just has barely enough storage, I think, to do any photo editing or sketching. 64 gigabytes is like the bare minimum now, and it's only going to be $70 more than the 128 gig iPad 10.2. And yes, you can use the Lightning port. I assume, have some adapters, plug in an SD card with the new Files app. It works very well. But once again, the amount of storage in at least the baseline iPad, which is the one most people are going to buy because it's so affordable, it's just not enough for that. Once again, I would say this device is more meant for web-oriented tasks like streaming video, accessing files, taking notes. This is not going to take up too much space. It backs it up to the cloud. Web surfing, checking your email, This is more of a student-oriented tablet, or a tablet for someone's grandma, for example. My grandma has a 9.7-inch iPad. We got one for her, and she absolutely loves it, checking her email, surfing the web, playing Scrabble with friends. Nothing too serious or storage-based. In regard to gaming, is it the most smooth experience ever? No. But is it a good experience? Hell yeah, it is. I played a bunch of games. I did a whole video testing out this tablet, playing Call of Duty Mobile, Minecraft, PUBG, and it ran surprisingly well. Despite the old silicon, you get 3 gigabytes of RAM in here. It has enough horsepower to run, most intensive games, 30, 40 frames a second, no problem. And if you're buying this tablet for your son or your daughter or, a cousin or some kid who wants to game, they're going to love this thing. They're not even going to care that it's not the most high performing tablet on the market right now. And lastly, I want to backtrack just a little bit. If you are somebody who does like Lightroom editing, I know I mentioned like creative work and you probably should steer clear of this device if you want to do anything major. Light photo editing should be fine in like Lightroom because you know it backs it up to the cloud and everything. So like you can definitely edit photos no problem in this app. It's color accurate, it's sharp and bright, and the Apple Pencil makes it a really nice experience as well. So if you're doing some light photo editing, you know you have your files based in another system where you're uploading it to the cloud, this device can suit you well. It's just that like the iPad Pro, I would say, is more convenient with USB Type-C and the increased storage and just the better overall, you know, quality display color-wise and contrast-wise. But yeah, light photo editing is definitely possible with this device. So once again, who is this tablet for? I would say in large part students. They don't have a lot of money to spend on the higher end iPads. They want the Apple Pencil, they don't want to break the bank, and they don't need a bunch of storage locally. You know, they're just accessing web files, note-taking, web surfing, etc. Nothing really storage based. This tablet is going to suit you very well, and the price point is right around where you'd be probably comfortable with. It's also for older folks, you know, like grandmas, grandpas. They want to, you know, get into the world of the internet. You know, like my grandma had a phone and she didn't want a laptop, so we bought her a 9.7 inch and she absolutely loves it for, you know, YouTube and Gmail and web surfing and Scrabble, like I said. This is also a great tablet for little kids. You know, if this is someone's birthday gift or a Christmas present, they're gonna love it. Anything beats a Kindle Fire, I would say, although that's not a bad device, but you know, this is an iPad after all, and every kid wants an iPad, right? So all in all, you really do get what you pay for with this tablet. You get a pretty decent, albeit outdated design, a pretty decent display, albeit with outdated specifications, no True Tone and no lamination. You get awesome battery life, you know, all day. You get a mediocre camera, which is once again good for, you know, mundane tasks. And for the price, I would say the performance is outstanding. The A10 is still no joke and will push your everyday experience, you know, gaming, movie watching, note-taking, etc. very, very well. And the fact that we do get the iPad experience on this cheap iPad really does make it a nice, you know, Chromebook or a basic laptop alternative. And that about wraps things up. I hope this video helped you out. Once again, I'd really appreciate it if you leave a like on this video, comment if you have any questions, suggestions, or opinions, and subscribe for more content like this. And of course, as always, I'm Noah, and I will catch you all in the next one.